Hey everyone, it's Bubbles and welcome back to my channel. Also welcome if you are new, but this video will be my July wrap-up. So I did a wrap-up before, but it was my book update because I was really just catching up on all of the books I had read throughout the year. It's kind of like my mid-year check-in kind of thing. But I ended up reading 5 books last month, which is excellent for me. So, I thought we would sit down and talk about them. Yeah, so last week I posted a TBR for August this month. And so I figured I would post, since I'm only posting a video per week, that I would post a TBR first at the start of the month so you knew where I was at. And then my wrap up would soon come after, just because I feel like it makes more sense that way. Technically, I am like a week late compared to when everyone else posts their wrap ups, because they post them at the same time as the TBRs, but I'm not gonna do it that way. But yeah, so let's get into it, because I probably will have a lot to talk about. Let's be honest, I do. So yeah. So I think it'll be easiest if I just go in order of the books I read for the month. But the first one I started out with this month was actually finishing Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. So this is the third in the Throne of Glass series. I spoke on it a little bit from what I had read in my book update, but I finished it last month, so I can finally give my final thoughts on this. If you remember from my book update, I said this might be a 4-star, and it did end up being a 4-star read for me. This one really sets the tone for how things are gonna unfold in the rest of the series. We get a lot more information on the world in this one. We meet some more characters that are going to end up following us through the series and etc. But yeah, this one, I love this one. So in order to give concise review, because I write all my thoughts in my book journal, but it's been so long since I've talked about this one because this month felt long, let's be honest, so let me try to refresh my memory of what I thought of this book, because so much has happened since this, from where I'm at in the series, and I'm like, oh boy. So yeah, so, in the first 200 pages, based on where it left off, because I don't think me giving a synopsis of this one is really a good idea because of spoilers, and also if I'm just saying the synopsis of the first one, it really doesn't give you anything on what's going on in this, but I'll try to keep it in general terms so I'm not spoiling anything. But within the first 200 pages of Heir of Fire, I already kind of feel the emotions that are going through Selena's head. Selena is our main character, if you're not familiar, but yeah, so where she's at in this and kind of the events that led her up to where she is in this, I feel like Sarah J. Maas's writing style really reflects how our main character is feeling at the time, and I feel like it's done very well in this, because you really do see how her character develops, and you feel how her character develops in this. You feel her highs and her lows during this, throughout the whole thing. And that was probably my favorite part of it. And this book for sure marks a turning point for our main character as well. After she's kind of gone through the darkest parts in her life, and she's bringing up old trauma and things like that without giving too much information. But yeah, this is definitely a turning point in the series, and it marks, like I said, it marks kind of how things are gonna be splayed out in the rest of the series. So I mentioned when I covered the first two in the series how sometimes the jumping through point of views was a little bit off and awkward, but I feel like Sarah J. Maas finally got like the flow of it a lot better in this one, especially since we're being introduced to more and more characters. It ends up being split up into different chapters, which I feel like is a better break in between point of views, and I feel like it's easy to tell which character we're on the point of view of. I feel like they're all kind of like iconic in each way. But she also does do a good job setting up when it's a new point of view, so you can immediately tell who we're inside the head of, you know? So, I do have to say, one of the characters we get introduced in this one, Rowan Whitethorn, he's my favorite. I feel like he's a lot of people's favorites. Just the character development and the way we see him interact with characters in this is interesting, and also his backstory is kind of like, it gets me every time I hear a character that has his kind of backstory, I'm not gonna lie. So we get a lot of Kale's point of view in this, and this man, if you remember me talking about the first one, Throne of Glass, I had initially liked him. And when we were in this book, without saying anything, he's very two-faced at what things are going on in terms of how he thinks of one character versus the other character. And I'm just like, he picks and chooses, like, how he judges people, and I'm like, you can't do that, dude. You just it doesn't make any sense. And I wish he would get his head out of his butt, you know? Which will be me ranting later, because I do know he gets worse, trust me. Anyways, but in this one, he has certain prejudices against certain characters in this, and I am just like, who are you one to talk when you're literally loyal to a horrible person? Like, it is no spoiler that the king in this is a terrible person, and you're loyal to him, but you're being, like, picky and choosy about whether you trust a character or not. And I'm just like, I don't, how does that make sense to you? Because it doesn't to me. So yeah, that was the thing in this one. And then, yeah, there's a lot of things that happen in this that really set the tone for how much worse it will get in the series, in terms of, like, the slave camps. If you know, you know. That was horrible in this. Nearly cried. Yeah. And then, yeah, the ending in this, like, I love the ending in this. I feel like it was just, Selena's badass, you know? But, like, I feel like the information we learn at the end of this that kind of sets Selena on her end game is, like, it's some stuff there, man. It's pretty good. But, like, oh, and also, just, like, the big, like, event that happens at the end of this is so messed up. Like, I feel eternally bad for literally every character in this novel. Except Kale. Kale can just go away. But, like, dang. The ending of this one was just, like, oof. Because I was going to pick, Assassin's Blade up after this, and, like, I understand why, because it was kind of nice to get, like, a break after everything that had happened in this, but, like, oof. The ending of this is, like, heartbreaking. But yeah, so, final thoughts on this one. I just think the way the stakes were raised in this, in terms of how it ended, where characters were left and what situations they were in, was just terrible. And I was, at the end of this, I was like, how in the heck is this going to pan out? Like, this has gone from bad to worse, and I'm just like, wow. just wow. Like, it's just a whole can of worms is opened up in this, and I was just like, okay then. But yeah, so this was definitely a 4-star read for me. Moving on. So then the next 2 books I read this month, I actually covered them in my 24-hour readathon video I posted, but It Ends With Us and It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. So yeah, I covered most of my thoughts on It Ends With Us in that 24-hour readathon, and then I think I had only gotten halfway in It Starts With Us, so I will give a full collection of my thoughts in this. So starting with It Ends With Us. So as for a synopsis of this one, I kept giving the wrong one. I apologize if any of you were spoiled by the things that happen. I don't imagine it would be, but like, I'm sorry. But we follow our main character, Lily, who she's just given a eulogy of her father that we already know she did not like, in terms of, like, the relationship was bad. He was very abusive to her mom, and she had finally moved away from home and started living on her own. But she finds herself meeting Ryle, who is a neurosurgeon. Almost forgot. After that had happened, and they kind of get to know each other a little bit, and then he just keeps, like, inserting himself in her life, and, like, they start getting closer and developing feelings and things like that. She ends up opening her own flower shop because she's always wanted that as her dream, and as her and Ryle's relationship start to develop more and they start dating, some things from her past start to pop up in terms of a boy she used to love and care for because he was, like, homeless. And stuff starts going really bad for her and Ryle's relationship, and it just kind of goes downhill from there. I would definitely look up trigger warnings for this. There's a lot of talk of domestic abuse and things like that, so if that is not something you can handle, please be careful with these, because they go in, like, depth about it. But in terms of my thoughts of this book, I don't think Colleen Hoover's writing is really my style. I feel like because I'm so picky on contemporary romance anyway, I feel like I need to find some more stuff that's more my wheelhouse. Just because the problem with it is she has very simplistic writing, and I'm very much used to, like, flowery fantasy writing. That is what I love the most. And I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but, like, yeah, so her writing in this is just, it's very simplistic, but there's also parts of it where it kind of just feels like it's day-to-day life of the characters and, like, step-by-step of how they live their day, and I feel like that kind of draws on for me. I don't know if it's just because of the genres I read normally or what, but it just kind of, like, I don't know, it feels very much like I did this, and then I did this, and I'm like, okay, cool. I don't really care half the time, but, like, that's kind of what it was like in this. And then also just the fact that it seems like, because I have read Colleen Hoover's Verity before, it seems like no matter what book I'm reading, all of her female characters, not even just the main character, but all the female characters, are written very immaturely to me. And I can say this because, like, Lily is supposed to be the same age as me, and she does not think the same way I do in terms of, like, maturity levels. Granted, she does get, like, character development, and she does learn how to, like, stand up for herself, which I feel like I feel like I can relate to that, and a lot of people can relate to that in some ways, that you're not always, like, at that point in your life. I understand that, but, like, I don't know, just the way she interacts with some of the other characters is just kind of immature to me, and I'm like, I'm supposed to be the same age as you, but I would not react this way. I'm confused, you know? So yeah, that's something I've noticed a lot. I feel like other people have noticed that in her books as well, that her characters are just a little immature. And I feel like if I'm reading, I don't know, I get irritated in contemporary romances when characters act immature and they can't figure their lives out, when I'm like, well, I know how to deal with this situation. You know what I mean? Like, it's more just frustrating, and I'm just like, I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, so that kind of was like, okay. In terms of the message put in this, I feel like it is very strong. I feel like the way we see Lily's character develop as it's going along in the story, and how her thoughts change on the relationship with Ryle, and then also just like she ends up comparing herself to her parents' relationship with each other, which I feel like is a good portrayal, because I feel like people that get into like abusive relationships with their partners, it ends up being because it was a generational thing. Just because, you know, your parents are like your closest example of like a romantic relationship, and if they're not giving you a proper example of that, it can really taint how you think a relationship is, and also just in the fact of like how you deal with certain things that happen. And I feel like that is something that holds true to real life. And then just also, she reminisces on these journals that she wrote when she was a teenager. And we kind of get like another one when she's in the current timeline, and she's reflecting on all the things that have been happening to her, and just the way she flows through her thought process with dealing with where she's at, because it's kind of like at the lowest point in her life when she writes this letter to herself, this journal entry, or I guess, yeah. And it's kind of eye-opening. In some ways, I feel like many people can get, not only they can get like representation for like, hey, I've been through this too, you know, I thought like this too, or things like that, but also just like hope for it can get better, or you can get yourself out of those situations, since I know there is a lot of people, especially women, who have a lot of hesitation getting out of those situations with their partners and things like that. So I just feel like the message in this is something that needs to be told. But I feel like some of the other details in this bogged down like the powerful message in it, which is why I only ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I just don't think that these are really my style. So yeah. And then in the sequel, It Starts With Us. I finished it this month as well. So this one, oh yeah, by the way, hang on, I forgot. So on my 24-hour readathon, I mentioned it, but I tabbed this one for every time Ryle was a red flag. He did a red flag moment, so that was fun. Kind of wish I carried it on to the sequel, because he was infuriating in the sequel, but so then in this one, I tabbed every time Atlas was a green flag for some irony. Anyways, so yeah, but Ryle already in this, Ryle was freaking infuriating in this. I mean, I feel like like, his behavior is inexcusable in the first one, but the behavior he has in this one, just, like, you know, it kind of just made me want him to not ever get better. Because I'm normally someone that's like, everyone deserves a second chance. And I'm like, in this one, no, you don't, because you're kind of a butthead. I can't with him. Anyways, so, and I feel like the fact that I got so angry at him in this kind of, like, solidifies that he was well written in the sense of it was very realistic how he reacted to stuff. But anyways, so, and then, oh, the one problem I had, well, I had a few problems with this one. So one of the things that kept happening in this was we would get a refresher of Lily's journals from the first one, but my problem with this is it would be like full pages of her journals, which we had already read in the first one. So, especially with me reading them back to back, I remembered most of what was being talked about in her journals. So then for us to be given, like, the entire journal entry over again and them spanning, like, several pages was kind of annoying to me, because it was like, I don't feel like rereading her journal entries that I've already read before. Like, I feel like it could have just been, like, little excerpts or quotes from her journals for the moment, or, like, a summary of, like, what the character read. Like, I didn't need the entire journal entry again. It was just, I feel like there was, like, 10 pages worth of that in this, and I'm like, I didn't need to read that. Thank you. And then at the end of this, Ryle continues to be a butthole, and I feel like at the end of it, it all culminates in him basically having a tantrum, but the way Lily deals with it, I feel like is very mature and realistic. Like, we still have some character development for her in this, and I feel like it's more on the, like, logistical adult side of how something like this can go, or, like, how it's dealt with after the fact, which I think is important, because there is talk of, like, real life issues and how it's dealt with even after it happens and things like that, without trying to say too much of a spoiler since this is a sequel. But I just feel like the way she deals with it is the most mature option. And also, like, yeah, Atlas was, like, the biggest green flag in this throughout, because we do get a split of both of Lily's point of view and also Atlas's point of view in this. So it was interesting to see some things through his mind, but we also get, like, more information on his family, and also we get some issues that arise for him in this, and I just think the way he goes about it is just, like, he's such a good guy, you know? And then, yeah, my thoughts for the end of this, this one felt a lot lackluster compared to the first one in terms of, like, how, like, events happened. I feel like this one was even more so just, like, day-to-day life, and I just feel like I didn't really need to hear some of that stuff. I just feel like it didn't add anything to the story. So, and that happened quite a lot in here, and this one is, like, 320 pages. I just feel like a lot of it was unnecessary. I don't know. I just don't like hearing, like, step by step of how someone lived their day in a book. That may just be me, but, like, I don't know. So yeah, this one didn't feel as strong as the first one. which is why I only ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. So, yeah. Okay, and then the next thing I read last month, I ended up picking Assassin's Blade up. So, to continue the Throne of Glass series. So, based on the guides I read or I saw online, it seemed like most of what I was saying was people recommended you read this one after Heir of Fire. I know some people recommended after Crown of Midnight and also before Throne of Glass, but now that I have read the fourth one, I completely understand why this one is better read in between Heir of Fire and Queen of Shadows. But anyways, I will explain that momentarily. So this is a collection of novellas and short stories about Selena when she was in the Assassin's Guild in Adderlane. So she was Arobin Hamel's apprentice or heir. Yes, it's her heir. Anyways, she was the king of assassins' heir. Anyways, okay. So it's kind of her life leading up to when she was caught by the king and sentenced to be enslaved in Adovier, the slave camp, the labor camp. So that's what this is about. So I was gonna go through each short story and talk about each one individually, I guess, to make it easier. I don't know. But anyways, so the first novella is about a pirate lord. So we get an introduction into Sam, and at the time Selena and Sam are enemies. They kind of just hate each other, which is interesting to see. I didn't expect that, so that was fun. And also it was very interesting seeing like snarky Selena back before she went through the labor camp, because like she still has like very sassy snarky moments in Throne of Glass, but she's been jaded a little bit because of what happened to her, which makes total sense. But like it was interesting seeing how spoiled and bratty she was in this. Like it was a treat. I have to say, I kind of like, not gonna lie, I didn't really like Selena in these. Like, in terms of how she started out. I feel like it's terrible to say, she became a better person as crap started happening to her. And I think it's just because she's young, she's immature, she's spoiled just because of Arobin, and I'm just like, wow, girl, you changed, you know, like, but yeah, so, yeah, I feel like the Pirate Lord one is just kind of like a good introduction into how she interacts with the Assassin's Guild, how she interacts with Sam, and also Arobin, and also how like nonchalant and like she's got an attitude when she's going to deal with like clients and also her missions and stuff. It was just kind of funny. But even so, she still has like a sense of morality in this, which you end up finding out at the end of the first short story. So yeah. And then the second one is much shorter. I think it's only like, I don't even think it might be 30 pages or something, but it's The Assassin and the Healer. So this one was quite short. It was kind of following the aftermath after what happened in the Pirate Lord short story and how bitter Selena is after what happened, and you kind of see how horrible, like the start of how horrible Arobin can be. And honestly, the man disgusts me, which I will cover later, but like, oof. Anyways, so yeah, she is currently traveling to the Red Desert to the Silent Assassins in the Healer short story, but she meets a girl who's like a barmaid at this very like rinky-dinky town. I think it's a port town that's like really poor looking and gross. And Selena's just not having a good time, and she ends up like saving this girl even though she really doesn't care or want to. And I feel like seeing how she interacts with people and characters when she's in a very foul mood is interesting. But I still think that story gives her credit to she's not a terrible person, she's just kind of bratty. And then in the third short story, it's The Assassin and the Desert. So this is where she's actually there in the Silent Assassin's place. This one, I love this one just because it was very much like she was sent there to learn the ways of the Silent Assassins. So it's very much like training montage. Like, I just love that. It's so fun to me. Any section of a book where there's like lots of training and things like that is really a treat for me, so that was fun. And just also the fact that the Silent Assassins are completely different to the Assassin's Guild, and I love that. I was hoping they would go down that route, but they're definitely more like, this is a discipline. We use this to better ourselves, and we use it to defend ourselves, not necessarily to do all of the taking and conquering and etc. that the Assassin's Guild does. So I feel like the stark comparison between the two is very interesting in this, and Selena kind of grows to understand and appreciate them more, which is fun. And also there's just some stuff that happens in it that's a real good time, and it's kind of like, I'm not going to say anything about it, but it was very interesting seeing how Selena dealt with it. Anyways, so then in the fourth one, it's The Assassin in the Underworld. So this one is when she's finally coming back from the Red Desert back to the Assassin's Guild, and this one's literally, as the title implies, it's about the underworld in Adderlane. So she gets a mission from Arobin, and when she gets back, he's acting very strange. He's like completely apologetic, which is even more suspicious than before. But yeah. Also, the entire time in that one, I just wanted her and Sam to just talk it out, because them bickering at each other, while it was hilarious, it was just like, yo, if you just talk it out, you'll be fine. But yeah. And then, like, yeah, this is when I was like, you know what? I'm gonna say it. Arobin Hamel is a groomer. He is disgusting. He is slimy. I do not like him. I didn't like him even when we were getting, like, hints of who he was in Throne of Glass. I just don't like him. He's gross. Because not only did he find, Arobin finds her and brings her here, and at the time she was like a young child, and he basically like buys her all this stuff and basically makes her live in wealth, and like she's basically spoiled, and then he like harshly trains her to become an assassin, and it's grueling and it's messed up, and he expects her to like be indebted to him, and that's just a recipe for ugh, you know what I mean? And he even does the same thing with not the same thing, but relatively similar with one of the courtesans we meet in this, Lysandra. And she is, I'm not sure what age she started her training as a courtesan, but up until now, Arobin has been like funding her training in being a courtesan, which is really creepy. because she's not even 17 yet. She's not even 18 yet. It's just gross. Because then, like, she has a bidding night, and it's supposed to be when she comes of age of, is it 17, that her virginity is bidded on, and that's just disgusting. Like, that was really gross. I don't want to hear about that. I didn't like Lysandra, but that doesn't mean she deserves that. I understand she's, like, a courtesan and all, but it's just gross to me. I don't like it. So yeah, those two things were what really set the tone for, like, Arabin is a terrible human being. He's a groomer, and I don't like him. So yeah, those were, like, the main thing I got from the fourth one. So, and then, yeah, and then the end of it is the start of it going bad, basically. Like, it was a little bad before, but it be going worse in this one. But then we get the last short story, which is The Assassin and the Empire, and this is the final one before she inevitably gets thrown into Endovir. And that one is heartbreaking. Like, it's where everything bad that she reminisces on in Throne of Glass happened. So, if you end up reading this before, you'll get the introduction into it, and you'll get snippets of it later in the series. But if you've already read part of the series and then you go into this, I still feel like it hits hard, just because, like, you get a real good sense of what Sam Cortland is like, and I just mean, like, this guy, he's such a dork, and also he's, like, he's funny, I don't know, I just really like Sam, and the ending of this was just, oof. So, tread carefully. I won't say much on it because I don't want to spoil anything if you don't know. But, like, yeah, the entirety of it just sets the tone for how horrible Arabin is, and I'm just, no, I don't like him. I really want him dead. Anyways, so yeah, but all in all, I ended up giving this I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, just because it's a collection of short stories, so I don't really, like, rate them on the same level of a full novel, but I still really enjoyed this, and it was a nice break in between Heir of Fire and Queen of Shadows, and I feel like I'm glad I went through this order of reading, which I will speak on next, because the next thing I read was Queen of Shadows, the fourth in the series. So this one, I'm so glad I got through this last month, but, like, oof. Anyways, so the reason I think it's best to read Assassin's Blade before going into Queen of Shadows is just because Selena is in that area where the Assassin's Guild is in Rifthold, and, like, yeah, we get a lot of, like, reminders and little snippets basically from everything that happened in each of the short stories throughout this. So I feel like having read Assassin's Blade first before this, and then I have it, like, fresh in my head for when I went into this, because we get it, like, from the start to, like, about halfway through. So I feel like it was a good order to go in just because of that. So yes, but, like, I don't know how to talk about this one because a lot of stuff happens. It's a lot. It's a lot for me to talk about, but, like, I suppose we'll just go in order. So, already in this, like, Kale is so infuriating in this one. I was so pissed off at him the entirety of this book. Like, I could not handle it. He was just, I don't even know if I can explain it without giving stuff away, but he was just so frustratingly stupid. It was just so stupid. So, like, he just likes playing the blame game. And it's not even in a smart way. And I'm just like, dude, how could you blame people for something they didn't even do? Like, they weren't even there for. Why are you doing that? And then he's doing it because of who they are. And I'm like, that's not even fair. I don't know. He just picks and chooses what he chooses to blame people for. And it doesn't really make much sense. And I understand it's because he's, like, really upset with the things that happen in Heir of Fire. But I'm just like, you can't just do that when they're trying to help you. And, like, the things he's told in this are, like, the truth. And he sits there and he's like, no, you're lying to me. And I'm like, bruh. I can't even with this character. Like, I was just so frustrated at him. I got so mad at this book on his points of views, because, like, every time in his point of view, he would pick up, like, oh, this character is selfish. I hate them. They're lying. I don't like them. They're just trying to take blah, blah, blah away from me. And I'm like, literally no, bro. Literally no. They don't hate this person. Like, if you don't understand that they also care for this person and they're just trying to do what's best for them, you're stupid. Like, I was so mad. Oh, anyways, so then, yeah, so the setting in this is, it's almost like Selena's gone, like, full circle back to where she started in Rifthold, which is interesting. And she gets some revenge, and it's so sweet in this one. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, oof. Selena has, like, the way she goes about, the events leading up to about the halfway point in this is just amazing. She's, like, master planner without saying anything. Like, she's just, I loved it. It was great. So, like, that was fantastic. Basically, so this is split up into 2 parts. Basically, the events leading up to the end of part 1 were just, they were my favorite part. Because it felt like she was getting revenge for things that happened, and, like, it felt like she could continue on with, like, her end game. And it was immaculate. So, she's just tricking people, and it's great. So, yeah. So, and then, yeah, like, there's, like, a rescue mission in this that's really cool. I mean, we just see Selena in, like, this super badass assassin light, and, like, we saw a little bit of it before, but, like, you really get it in this one, and it's just straight up vibes in this. I just loved it. In the second part of this book, yeah, Kale does something really stupid after he realizes that people were not lying to him, but he still does something stupid with it, which is just, I'm so angry at this man. And then, yeah, just the things that are brewing in this with the witches is just, I'm so invested. Honestly, the character arcs we have gotten in Queen of Shadows were just really fun, seeing how, like, someone could go from almost being on one side to, like, hesitating is really interesting. Like, honestly, the arcs of the witches were the most interesting to me in this one. I freaking love the witches. I just love them. So then my final thoughts for this one, I had a bit of a head scratcher moment with this one. So I'm going to try and explain it, very general points, so that if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, It's not a spoiler, but so we get to the ending point of this one, and we get some level of like issues being resolved in it in some sense. And I feel like the reveal with the event at the end was, while it was very interesting, I just feel like I wasn't expecting it, and I wasn't expecting the character that I feel like we were all like rooting for to be like gone away with wasn't even like the biggest bad, if you understand what I mean. Like, the reveal we get about the two main players in the end game in terms of the dark side, I don't know, I didn't really understand it, because the character that ends up being like the big bad that we weren't expecting it to be, to me, it didn't make as much sense, because we don't really get a whole lot of that character. We got a little bit of it in the first 2 books, and then they kind of like go away for a while, and then we get them back in here, and a little bit in Heir of Fire, but it just didn't feel like they were the big end game, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't know. I felt a little hesitation with the ending on this one. I just didn't feel like it made a whole lot of sense, because we weren't really getting much of that character. So then for it to be revealed that this is actually the character who's going to be the biggest challenge to defeat, I was like, oh, weird. So, and also just the fact that, like, I thought a certain character was going to last until the end of the series, and they didn't, and I'm like, wow, the way they were ended was really badass, and like the culmination of all the events happening at the same time was really cool. I just didn't expect him to be gone in the 4th book of the series, when I still have 3 books left. I was just like, so it makes me very curious for how the rest of this series is going to go. I know for the next 2 books, most people tandem read them because they're going on at the same time, and I understand why they're a tandem read now. Without saying anything, it's just some characters' point of views are in Empire of Storms, and then some other characters, same period of time, are their point of views are in Tower of Dawn. So I understand. I don't understand how they're like 700 pages of that, but we will see. And then, like, yeah, Kingdom of Ash is the big finale. So it was a little bit odd that the character I thought was going to be the actual endgame wasn't. So that was strange. But I guess we will just keep going and see how it pans out, because I wasn't expecting that at all. So, yeah, and also just the fact that, like, this book ended very nicely compared to the rest of the series. Like, it didn't really have, like, a cliffhanger ending. It felt very, very resolved. Like, almost like that could be the end of like a movie, and then the next part is like the sequel. That's how it felt. So it was just very odd. But I'm very curious as what's going to happen in the rest of the series, because I know it is not going to stop with the train wreck that is going to happen. I know bad stuff's gonna happen. It's gonna be great. I'm probably gonna cry. It's gonna be fantastic. And then also just like, we finally get character development for Kale at the end of this. And while I'm glad to see him finally get his head out of his butt, I'm still mad at him. So yeah, we shall see how Tower at Dawn goes with that. But Can't really say anything else because, yeah. Anyways, so all in all, just because the ending of this one was for me, I ended up giving this a 3.8 out of 5 stars. So far, Heir of Fire has been my favorite. I also just think, like, some of the romance parts in this were a little bit like, okay, we get it. Can you stop glaring, like, lustfully at each other? Like, it's annoying at this point. I don't know, I was just getting that, it was just getting a little repetitive, and I'm like, you know what, y'all are too much. So, anyways, but this one was good fun. I still have to say, like, the first part of this was the best part for me. So yeah, I still can't wait to finish the series. Anyways, so that was very ranty, but that was my July wrap up of all the books I read. Really making progress with Throne of Glass. I'm hoping to finish it next month. So if you want to hear my TBR for this month, you can check out my last video. I went into some more depth of, like, why I'm not doing a tandem read and things like that. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, and also if you want to see anything else from me during this month or in the future, just any book content you would like to see, just let me know. But I will see you guys next week with, I believe next week will be my bookshelf reorganizing, because I did that, which you could probably tell from my backdrop. I don't know if my backdrop was different with my TBR, I can't remember, but yeah. So it'll probably be that next week, so I will see you for that. So yeah, but sorry this got posted a little later than I wanted to, but we still gotta talk about books, it's fine. So yeah, I will see you guys next week, bye!